Have you ever stopped to think about how we talk about an entire country's economy? You know, all the buying, selling, making, and working, and we act like it's just one single thing. How do you even put a price tag on a whole nation? Well, today we're going to dive right in and find out. I mean, just picture it. You've got this incredibly complex web of factories, farms, coffee shops, and tech startups. Millions of people making countless decisions and transactions every single day. It's an absolute whirlwind of activity. And somehow, we try to take all of that and distill it down into one single number, like GDP or national income. But what does that number really mean? What's actually being counted? And, maybe more importantly, what's being left out? That's what we're here to break down. To really get that number, you first have to understand the engine that makes it all run. And you know what? It turns out to be a surprisingly simple and, well, elegant loop that powers everything. Okay, so let's strip it right back to the basics. On one side, you have households. That's all of us, you and me. And on the other side, you've got firms, all the businesses that produce things. Think of them as the two essential gears in this whole economic machine. So we, the households, we provide the essential ingredients for production. We offer our labor, the land our businesses use, the capital to get things off the ground. In exchange, firms take all those resources and use them to create all the products and services we use every single day. Now here's the other side of the coin, the part that makes it all work. The firms pay us for our labor and resources. That's our wages, our rent, our profits. And what do we do with that income? Well, we turn right around and spend it, buying the very goods and services the firms just produced. So you see, money flows out from firms as income and flows right back to them as our spending. And this is what it looks like altogether. It's this continuous, self-perpetuating loop. Production generates income, that income gets spent, and that spending, in turn, fuels more production. This one simple idea, the circular flow, is absolutely fundamental if you want to understand national income. So, because all this value is just flowing around in a circle, economists had a pretty clever realization. They figured out they could measure the size of the whole economy by just jumping into that circle at 3 different points. Let's see how that works. So, you can either add up the total value of everything that got produced, that's the output method. Or you can add up all the income that everybody earned, that's the income method. Or, finally, you can add up what everybody spent, the expenditure method. Now, here's the cool part. In a perfect world, all 3 of these should give you the exact same number. But there's always a but, isn't there? There's a massive trap, and it's called double counting. Imagine you're trying to figure out the value of a loaf of bread. If you count the value of the farmer's wheat, then the value of the miller's flour, and then the final price of the bread, you've actually counted the value of that wheat 3 times. It would make your economic numbers massively inflated. So to get around this, economists use a really smart technique called the value-added approach. Instead of counting the total output at each step, they only count the new value that was created at that specific stage of the journey. This chart shows it perfectly. Look, the cotton farmer adds 150 rupees of value from scratch. Then the yarn maker takes that cotton and adds another 100 rupees of value on top of it. See, you just keep adding the new value at each step. And when you add up that value added column, you get 500 rupees, which is the exact price of the final shirt. No double counting. It's a pretty clever solution, right? Okay, so we've got this neat and tidy system for counting, but this is where our story takes a really interesting turn. What if I told you that this official number, this national income, misses a gigantic chunk of our actual economic life? Seriously, think about it. The incredible economic value of a parent raising a child doesn't get counted. The food a farmer grows to feed their own family, not in the stats. Any kind of bartering, illegal markets, or even volunteer work, it's all completely invisible to the official numbers. Basically, if money doesn't officially change hands for a good or service, it's like it never happened. And this quote really hammers the point home. Even forgetting about the entire hidden economy, just getting the official numbers right is incredibly hard. Trying to properly separate what's a final good from what's an intermediate part in our super complex global economy, well, that remains a huge practical challenge for the statisticians. But the story doesn't stop there. In more recent years, a new, really important question has popped up. If our economic activity is damaging the environment, should we really be counting all of it as a positive? This has led to the whole idea of green GNP, or green gross national product. The goal here is to create a different kind of scorecard, one that measures sustainable, long-term well-being, not just the raw output of stuff we made this year. So here's the fundamental difference. Traditional GNP says building a new factory is always a positive. Green GNP comes along and says, hold on, that's great, but let's subtract the cost of the pollution it creates, and let's subtract the value of the natural resources it used up. It's trying to give a much truer picture of whether we're actually getting richer or just borrowing from the future. And this image really gets to the heart of it all. Green GNP forces us to ask that critical question. What is the true cost of our economic growth? It forces us to confront the trade-offs between progress and the health of our planet by trying to put a price on nature. So after hearing all these challenges and limitations, the hidden economy, the environmental damage, you might be wondering, why do we even bother with these national income stats at all? Well, it turns out they're still incredibly important. Look, these numbers, as imperfect as they are still the bedrock for almost all major government decisions. They help shape policies on jobs and industry. They guide long-term economic planning. They give us a rough way to compare living standards around the world. And they help us see how income is spread out across society. So maybe the best way to think about national income isn't as some perfect final score. It's better to think of it as a story, a very specific, data-driven story about the flow of money and production in a country over a single year. And that leaves us with one final thought. If this number really tells a story, then it's a story with a lot of missing chapters and unwritten pages, isn't it? It's a story about what we, as a society, have decided is valuable enough to count. So the real question is, what story is your country's economy telling you?